as a student, how do you differentiate between dance teachers who have depth of experience versus dance teachers who have depth of time? Okay, or do you
Ooh.
differentiate them? So,
Uh,
so here's an example. I mean, just to kind of put it like in layman's terms, it's like you've got the dude who's maybe only been training or dancing and doing all this for like 2 to 3 years, but that's like a compressed amount of years, right? Then you've got the person who's been in it for 6, 10 years, but the amount of progress that they've made has really just been 1 year, amounted up to 6 or 10.
mm,
Right? So how do you differentiate between that, or do you? Are there advantages or disadvantages to either one of those?
well, that I honestly would always prioritize on experience,
Mm,
but that will always also depend on yung synthesis ng person, ng experiences niya.
mm,
Because if the person has so much experience, even whether it's packed into 2 years or 4 years, but you can't break down the value of learning muscle control for popping,
mm.
then as a teacher, parang, so ano nangyari dun sa experience, you know what I mean? Or at least break down, maybe or show wisdom with understanding culture or history. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So that's, I think, at the end of the day, synthesis of what you've gone through, what you've been through, putting it into lessons that will actually help dancers grow
Mm.
is what's important. Now, for the other option, the dude who has been dancing for 10 years, pero same thing lang for the past 10 years, I think, honestly, like, the only thing I would probably get from that dude or want to learn is like the good habits that actually work in time. The parang, oh
Ah,
yeah, so how long did it take you to learn a windmill? Oh, okay, that's nice. Like, oh, it took this. What were your habits that are like training regimen? All right, and then I look at the experience, dude. All right, so based on your experience, is this like an effective?
yeah,
Kasi may ganun din, di ba? Parang, oh, he got air flares in 10 years. Awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, but this guy got it in 3. Why was that? There are those fact. I know that's like a superficial comparison, right? But there are those factors there. But
Uh-huh.
so for me, like, experience is always something I always look at more than
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
If we're just talking about time,
Yes.
if we're strictly
Just
just talking about time.
yeah, because like sometimes you
But
can look at somebody who's like technically like for example has like oh they've been in the scene or they've been dancing for a really long time, but then you look back and you're
yeah,
like because eventually some people will I mean like you will reach a point if you stop trying to keep learning that you'll plateau. You know, if you're
yeah,
not trying to keep doing that. So I mean, obviously, the best place to be is both of these, right? Depth of experience plus
yeah,
depth of time. But we're just saying for the sake of the question, right? Na parang there's two of these things, and you know, how do you look out for which one? And I think you answered it really well. I didn't even think about like to be honest, when I asked the question myself, my immediate answer was like, dude, depth of experience all day, every day. But the way that you answered it, which was depth of time in terms of like the habits, that's a really good answer in terms of like the things that work for this length of time to get you to you know if you're doing like a planche push-up, you're gonna talk to the guy that's been doing that for a longer time than the guy who's done a bunch of other calisthenic stuff, but he never did that one sequence
yeah,
for that long. So maybe that's
yeah.
I don't know if that's the right analogy, but something that came up to mind when you were talking.
Kinda,
So
yeah. It's there. But I mean, yeah, there. I think what you said, the harmony between the two
mm,
matters a lot because, for example, like, you know how like young kids these days are hella crazy dancers,
mm,
super crazy 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds. Like, they could have experience in 2 years from age 9 to 10, a lot of experience in 2 years, but maybe they're not yet in the stage where they can synthesize those experiences into certain teachings and lessons that convert knowledge into wisdom, you know what I mean? So,
mm,
and that takes time.
yeah.
At the same time, if even if you have so much time in your belt, wala ka namang experience, that doesn't make you an OG just because you're really old.
Speak-
Because what are you OGing about?
what are you
Oh, I
OGing
do
about?
100 push-ups every day.
What are you OGing
Last
about?
15
What are
years.
you OGing about? I
You've
like
been
that.
here. That's
I got
you know
good.
what I mean.
Yeah. I like. Well, first, I took to one new vocab from you that I really like. Synthesize. I'm gonna use that and apply it in my
Yeah.
everyday language. And then I like the phrase. I'm gonna quote you on that. Could be a good T-shirt. What are you OGing about,
Routine about.
dude?
Yo, I'm an OG. I've been in this like barangay for like 20 years, doing the same thing, right? Like,
Yeah. Right.
okay, maybe you're an OG in that barangay, but I mean, even look, even the OGs today, like the OGs talaga who are OGs, they're still active. They're
Mm.
still in events. They're judging. They're staying up to date. They're, you know what I mean? I mean, Don Campbell, rest in peace, was still traveling, man, meeting dancers, even though he couldn't lock, right? James has firsthand experience with Don, and I'm sure, you know, I'm sure his stories would just attest yung depth of time and depth of experience. Plus the fact that he's a founder, so maybe unfair yung example niyan. So,
No,
but
but
unfair ata yun, you know.
well, you're right. When you look at these experts in the fields, you can. I mean, sometimes you can just tell just watching them. You're like, yeah, that he's got. I mean, sometimes it's just a natural visual thing. You look at it, you're like,
Yeah.
of course. It's like,
Right.
of course.
Yeah.
You're not. There's no sense of like, wait, bakit?
Right.
Why? You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
Even if they're not in their prime, you're
Yes.
gonna be like, this guy has
Yeah.
damn.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Because
Nope.
you could see some dancers in their prime, and you're like, what?
That's good.
What is-
Good insight. James, maybe you can know.
5 million
expand on
followers.
this. James, maybe you can
Anyway.
expand on this too. Go ahead.
Yeah, but this is like, honestly, this is a very new perspective for me, because I like, for me it was automatic, like time. Maybe because of my experience with the teachers I got. So so I think probably a good term for it is not just time, but you said it a while ago, depth of time. So it's not just like I spent so much time here, but I just slept on it, you know, like so you lalim no time with it. So for example, like so many great poppers right now, so many great poppers, and these poppers are very well known because of battles and stuff. And yeah, but I mean, like I got my teacher, my popper teacher Rashad. I only saw him once in a battle, and when I saw him, that's what happened to me. Like, oh my gosh, like what? This is different. So it wasn't like the usual, but like I felt like, oh, this is different. This is parang malalim, something like this. And so, yeah, I feel like when I got, because of because of the time he spent learning also from the people who were like in the the popping in Oakland and San Francisco, who were actually still teaching or still popping. I feel like that like transformed my popping. So I feel like you could actually win so many battles in a year. You could be super popular, but that doesn't mean you're a, but you know this. That doesn't mean you're a great teacher. You just have so much experience, but in one aspect, in that way. But people can see like that as a whole thing. Like, oh, he's a great popper. He can do different styles. He can do this, and he's probably a great teacher. But then you attend his class, and then, oh, okay, all right. So, and then you see these people who are actually good, and then they're actually good teachers too. So I feel like time was a very big part, especially in street dance, because like, yeah, it's not really like centuries ago. You know, like the people who created the street dances are still alive. I mean, most of them, right? Some of them, right? So I feel like if you have time on your hands and you actually practice it, that's a big thing as a teacher. So like I feel like I had the best experience with my teachers with that. But again, there are also other, people who experience that, who live through that, but they're not good teachers at all. Like they can just talk to you like, and they can just keep saying, you know what I mean, and you don't know what they mean. So I experienced that so much too. So I feel like because of that, I became like, as a student, I felt like I need to research on this teacher first. And like I feel like it's easy to like get a teacher because he won this battle or he's super famous, or to get this teacher because like like he's popular for something. But you want to actually research to a point that you actually look at like who has he taught, how has he taught, was it enough for just that, for example, and that gives me a good amount of research results that okay, I'm not going to take this class anymore because I probably won't learn anything new. But so here I go here and then like, oh, you see the way he dances and like, who does he teach? Oh wow, like his student is crazy. So you go there. So yeah, and I learned that also with a very constant and a recent style, which is light feet. I got to learn from different teachers, and I realized that too, that like even if you're a no G or like you're a part of the first beat generation, that doesn't mean that you're that you can really translate that well into teaching. So for me, that's why time is a big part of it, because you notice a lot. Like you notice the timeline, and you can instantly say like, oh, I know what you're doing. This is what it is before. This is what it's called. This is the essence of it, and this is how you should do it. Something like that. Yeah. So compared to like a very concentrated, experienced dancer in a day or in a year, and then like, can you teach me this step? Oh, I just do it like this. Just do it the way I do it.
Right.
You're probably gonna get better at it, but the depth of it, Anyway, sorry.
No, but that I mean, like, I like what you when you focus on the time part. It also got me thinking a little bit about like how we define that terminology in terms of time, right? Like how dense it actually is. For example, let's say you're doing light feet and you literally trained your heart out for 1 whole month every single day, right? So that's 1 month. Then 11 months later, you just chilled, right? So is that 1 month experience or 1 year? Whereas let's say, right? Or like, let's say you've got the dude who's also doing light feet, and he did 1 year, but that's like the number of sessions you did spread out over the year. So is that 1 month or 1 year? So I think a big part of what we, because I think a lot of times when we think of somebody's experience, we think of their expertise, we just automatically relate time to how well they are, how good they are as a dancer, a teacher. And you really, really have to look at how well you define that, the density, the depth of how rich that experience is. Because you could look at somebody all day who's like, if he just did like 1 month and he went from here to here, like just imagine if he did that every year. And who's to say that value isn't any more 1 year? Maybe it's a value of 2 or 3 because he went hard, right? And did nothing else. Jess.
To add lang to what James said, actually, even though a dancer can have depth of time and depth of experience, at the end of the day, he or she could also not be a good teacher because teaching is a different skill.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, still like teaching can be it's a different thing talaga. It's your accountability with your students, knowing if they're stimulated visually, audio, verbal, instruction, learning particular pedagogies of teaching movement, especially if it's online. It's a different skill all in all. And some great dancers can be great teachers through experience and time. And some just aren't. Some can just perform.
Yeah.
Dun sila.
I think you also hit it right there, man. In terms of defining, and I realized how much better this question could have been phrased, because what I asked was, how do you differentiate a dance teacher who has depth of experience versus depth of time? And what we're realizing now is that's actually 2 separate questions. How do you differentiate a dancer with depth of experience versus depth of time? How do you differentiate a teacher with depth of experience versus depth of time, right? So parang those are things we have, like, because sometimes we discuss and we're like, oh, dance teacher, yeah, put it together. But we realize 2 different disciplines. 2 different disciplines.
Yeah.
Nice. Love it, man.
Great dancer, not a good teacher. So it's just a reality.
Just a reality. Dope.